So if you're just joining, this is the Ask Me Anything live Q&A. If you have a question, just pop it in the chat tab over there. Welcome to everyone who's joining. And tonight I'm going to be talking about this lens here. It's the Samyang, also known as the Rokinon 14 millimeter. If you have a question, then you can just pop it in the chat. But I figured I'd talk about this. A common question that I get is, what is a nice kind of starter or budget lens for astrophotography? And definitely this is the winner without a doubt. You'll find a lot of places online, a lot of other photographers recommend it. And you can actually get this lens for under $300 most of the time, and a lot of times around $250, depending on what system. So I'm going to tell you what camera systems you can use it with, just some thoughts on the manual versus the autofocus version, and how I like to use this lens. It's also fantastic for cityscape photography, for nature photography. If you don't have an ultra wide angle lens, it's definitely one of my favorites. So I'll just jump right in here. This is one of the reasons this lens is so cheap is that it's a manual focus lens. So that obviously what that means is there's no autofocus on this lens. But if you're shooting astrophotography, you're focusing on the stars, you don't need autofocus, you're manually focusing anyways. So it's not really a big deal. Also, if you're using it for architectural photography, obviously the building's not moving, so you don't need autofocus. You're not photographing birds or animals or people moving. You don't need to be quick, weddings and whatnot. So for nature photography, night sky photography, fantastic lens. So to use the manual focus, you just turn this ring. There's only one ring. It's a fixed focal length. So where is that? Yeah, you can see here, it says 14 millimeters. So it's fixed focal length. You can't zoom, but the benefit is it's super fast. It's f2.8, so you can bring in a lot of light. And that's really important when you're shooting in low light situations, like doing astrophotography. One thing about this lens that can be good and bad, it has this lens hood and it has this curved piece of glass. So you can't use filters. You can't put an ND filter on this. But if you're doing astrophotography, it doesn't matter. You don't want to put an ND filter on it. So I really don't care about that. Let's see. Another thing about the lens, the focus ring, it's pretty smooth, very good. Sometimes it can be a little bit soft around the edges, but you are paying under $300 for the lens. So you have to take that into account. So I want to show you, this lens is actually made in Korea. Shout out to Korea. I know Jason Teal is in Korea right now. I lived in Korea for 11 years. And okay, Jason Teal says he has a Tokina 16 to 28 millimeter. It's the same style. It is fast too and super wide. Awesome. So I'm going to share my screen. Now let me try this one more time. And let me see if, actually, I'll share the window. Okay, so let's get that craziness going on here. And okay, so here is the lens. By the way, I can't see the chat right now when I'm sharing my screen, but I'll check it after. So if you have a question, just pop it in the chat. This lens is available for Canon, Nikon, Pentax, and Sony E. So you have a lot of different systems that you can use it with. Oddly enough, some of them it's 300, and others it's 250. Oh, actually, it's 235 for Sony. So super cheap lens. That's probably the biggest selling factor right there. Now, when you look at this lens, there's another lens, which is an autofocus. And that lens is a bit more expensive. I'm just trying to find it here. It's this is the newer version, and this is an autofocus. So this is 564 for Sony, but I've seen this as high as $700. Again, I don't think you need the autofocus if you're using this mainly for astrophotography, because you're not autofocusing on the stars, you're using manual. So it's not really, doesn't really make a big difference. I haven't tested the autofocus version of this lens, but there's plenty of videos and comparisons online if you want to see what difference it really makes. One other thing is that a lot of people may not know, but in Rokinon and Samyang are the same thing. And a lot of people are asking this, is there any difference between the two? So no, there's no difference. Rokinon is a company in South Korea. They just rebrand the lenses. And somebody also said in Reddit, they're also called Bauer Pro Optic Vivitar Phoenix. I've heard of, I think, Pro Optic or Bauer, but really when you buy this lens, I got mine in Asia, it was Samyang. But if you're in the US or Canada, you're probably will see this lens as Rokinon. So same manufacturer, same lens. And oddly enough, don't end stream. Stop sharing. Okay. Oddly enough, these lenses, you can find them, like I said, you can find them all over the world. And oddly enough, sometimes the Samyang is cheaper than the Rokinon or vice versa. I have no idea why, but they're the same thing. So you can see mine here says Samyang. Why don't you, if anyone has any questions, just pop them in the chat. Jason says, how do you achieve peak focus? Good question. So to focus at night, the main thing that I'm doing when I'm focusing is there's a few different things, but usually I find the star and then I zoom in 100% with the digital zoom. You zoom, hit that magnifying glass 100%, you see the star and you're just rocking the focus back and forth, the focus ring. And you can usually see that it goes from like a blurry edge and then it turns into like a donut almost. But then there's like a point where the edge is a very fine, sharp edge. And that's all I do. If you can't find a bright star, the other thing I'm doing is looking for bright lights in the distance and on the landscape. So maybe there's a building or street lights or something like that off in the distance, and then you just focus on that. But the thing is, you have to zoom in 100%, hit that magnifying glass button until you can't zoom in anymore, focus it, and then you zoom back out, or you just take your shot like that. So that's how you focus it. Another way people focus, especially at night. So the question is basically, how do you focus at night? So like I said, you can zoom in 100%, focus it, and then that's zoom in with the optical zoom, not our digital zoom, not zoom in optical zoom. Focus and then take your shot. Another way you can focus at night, though, is a kind of popular way, or the most common, is this. Everything's backwards, so it's even hard to match up my finger here. Let's do it like this. All right. So when you turn the focus ring, you'll notice there is this infinity marker. And the infinity marker, this is as far as it goes, so it doesn't even match up exactly. I guess it's like that point in between the infinity sign. So when you are using this, it doesn't always work at infinity focus. It could be off. Even though you have infinity, it's off. So I find mine is like all the way turn and then bring back like a fraction. And that's usually the focus. You just, after a while, I kind of just know with this lens in particular where that sharp spot is going to be. But sometimes it works right at infinity. And then the last thing, oh, okay. So another question, would you be center focusing or, I can't see this here. Would you be center focusing or are you choosing a prominent feature? So you want to focus on something that's in the center of your frame, because if you're focusing on the edge of your frame, then the edges will be in focus, but the center could be blurry. So usually I'm focusing in the center of the frame. Not usually, always. I mean, it's not dead center. Sometimes it could be like, in this area right here, but you don't want to focus, up where this door is, because then the stars or whatever you have in your picture will be sharp here and they'll be blurry in the middle. Like I said, this lens is definitely a bit soft around the edges. It's not going to be super sharp. So, but I feel like for $250, if you want to get started, or under $300, if you want to get started in astrophotography, you want a super wide angle lens, you want a fast lens f2.8, you can't beat this. Otherwise, you're going to spend, $1,400, $500, or definitely over $1,000 for like a decent quality lens. So I think to get you started, this is definitely worth it. I will say though, when I bought this lens, I bought it in Malaysia, and something was off with the focus or something like that. And I went online and I saw that other people there were complaints. And I don't know if that's specific just to this lens, but if you buy this lens, bring it home, test it out in the daytime before you get out in the field, check how sharp it is. And then if you find that you have issues, make sure you have your warranty. You can bring it back to the shop where you bought it and they'll replace it with another one. So I know that sounds a little bit sketchy when someone recommends a lens and says you might have to return it, but I don't think it's that common. But I did return mine, no problem, got another lens, and it was fine. So there was obviously something wrong with that lens. How about you, Gregory and Jason? Do you guys have any experience with astrophotography, or do you have a lens that you would recommend for, fast lens, wide angle? Jason, I know you said the Tokina 16 to 28. I also like Tokina. They make fantastic lenses. I have the 70 to 300 is one that I have. Yeah. Jason says he bought that lens. Nice. So, all right. What else? Oh, you sent it back because I was using it on a full frame. Okay. Gregory, you haven't done much astrophotography. Yeah, it's hard if you're near New York City or near a lot of light pollution. It can be difficult to find a good spot where you can, don't have that much light pollution. Yeah, light pollution. Okay, so I'm gonna just show you. There's a map. I'll show you how I use it. It's called. So if you just, I want to share my screen here. So share screen. So the question is, how do you know where light pollution is when you go out and you want to do astrophotography? Obviously, if you go to a dark place, you'll have a much better chance of seeing the stars, because if you're in the city, then it's going to wash out all the light pollution, all the stars. So you won't see as many stars. So there's a few different options that you can use, and I'll show you how I use one of them. Let's share this. Share crazy. And go to light pollution map. So there's a couple different ones that you could use. Probably the most popular is this one called Dark Site Finder. Another popular one is just Light Pollution Map. There's a whole bunch of them, but these are the top two. Probably Dark Site Finder is the most popular, but both of them are great. They're a little bit different. You go to Dark Site Finder and you have the map here, and I'm going to increase the size of the map. And on the map, you're going to see all these pins. And so the pins are these, what they call dark sites. They're certified dark sites. So Cherry Springs State Park, Dead Horse Point State Park. These are all these places where you can go that are, dark sites. Acadia National Park is one. But I like to go up to the topo map here, dark sites. I turn this off. Oh, before I do that though, let's just see Korea, because I know Jason's in Korea. And this is pretty crazy because you can see like North Korea almost no light pollution except for Pyongyang right here. And here's Seoul. Anyways, I like to turn off the dark sites because I don't like the pins everywhere. And then the map, I play around with the different types of maps. So there's street, satellite, and dark. And I think I do street just because I like to see the roads. So, and then you can go to this slider and you can make it the map brighter and darker. So here's South Korea, and I know Jason is in Ulsan, which is right here. So if you're in Ulsan, probably, well, one thing is the Milky Way rises to the east and southeast. So, sorry, to the southeast. So, what you can do is, if you're in Ulsan, what I would do is I would go right, somewhere over here. So here's obviously the city center of Ulsan. It's white. It's super bright. But if we go down to the coast and maybe I go just, let's see, where's that? I mean, if you're somewhere over here in this area, over the mountain range, if you're like along here, Shinamri, I can't even read it, Shinamri. If you're somewhere like over here, or even this little spot, like right here, or at this looks like a lighthouse in a park or something, like this would be a great spot because the Milky Way is going to be rising over here and you're shooting off over the ocean. It should be pretty dark unless there's like a lot of fishing boats. Otherwise, if you were to travel around Korea, any of this area where it's not red, so all up this east coast is going to be really nice, really dark up in here. And actually, if you're in Ulsan, you might even want to go north and go to this area. And if you're in the US, let's say New York City, so we can see New York is crazy light pollution all around. But again, if you're shooting off to the southeast, then if you go on Long Island, if you're on any of these, like Fire Island right here, you're shooting out over the ocean. Also, Montauk is good. Yeah, here, this area, Montauk Point, is very dark. Stop doing that. It's pulling up a dictionary. And then places in the Northeast. I mean, if you're in New York, you can go up north. This is the Catskills right here. Or no, Adirondack is very big. And also Catskills, you have some dark areas. And Maine is very popular up in here for Acadia National Park is very dark, and that's why it's a dark site. You can see all this blue. There's just not much light pollution. So that is dark site finder. Another one is light pollution map, which is pretty similar. So let's just go back. You can see the display is a bit different, but what you can do, what I like about this one is that you can see if I click on here, it's going to show me the Bortle class. So this is a class 4, and you can see these different colors represent. So class 9 is like a very bright spot, and class 1 or 2 is a dark sky site. So again, you can go up to maps, and then I think the default is the world atlas, but you can also try these other, there's like different styles of maps. And yeah, that's it. You can do a hybrid. I like with the roads because it's just easier to figure out. Anyways, all right, let's just see what this looks like with Korea again. Compare. Oh, does it go to Korea? Oh, okay. So you can see this is so crazy. North Korea up here, and South Korea is totally lit up. And again, if we go down to Ulsan, let's go back to this World Atlas 2015. It looks like, yeah, there's a lot of light pollution right off the coast, which is really crazy. I'm wondering if it's all the fishing boats off there. That's nuts. I have no idea why that's like that. I think is it fishing boats? So it looks like Jason, if you or anybody in Korea, your best bet is going up north. I wonder what happens if we put the latest. Yeah. Oh, here it doesn't show that light pollution. So I think you're all right if you just shoot off of the coast here somewhere. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing that. Stop sharing. Cool. Okay, so questions. I couldn't read the text while I was sharing that, or the chat. Oh, how do I find a good spot? Yeah, not too many places in Korea. Well, that's the thing, Jason. I realized when I was teaching English at the university in South Korea, some of my students, they said, oh, I went abroad, and when I came back, I didn't realize there were that many stars. And if you grow up in a place with so much light pollution, you think there's just 100 stars in the sky. Whereas when you go to one of these dark sites, that's really just crazy. Oh, Jeju Island is probably another good spot. Any kind of island is obviously a good spot. But I've seen some good photos like that from Korea. So how did you find a good spot? Cool. Oh, tankers in the water. Yeah, that's probably what it is. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks for joining. And Jason Teal, I hope you can join next week. We'll do my first live Q&A with a guest. That should be really cool. Other than that, thanks for your questions all. I hope you got some great shots. Have a wonderful week. And I'll talk to you next week, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. And just as a reminder, if you didn't hear when you signed on, I am... question. What software would you use to edit those shots? What and what hair products are you using? This is just, it's my own greasy hair. No, I don't know. What software would you use to edit those shots? I'm just using Lightroom and Photoshop. I don't really use anything special to edit the astro photos. There's definitely a whole bunch of different types of software like star stacks and other things which stack on the they stack the photos. So a lot of times, well, the big issue with astrophotography is you get a lot of grain in your photos because you're shooting at ISO 3400 or 3200 or 6400. But what a lot of people do is stack. So they take 10 or 15 photos and then layer them on top of each other and then merge them. And then it takes the best data, the brightest pixels from each photo, and then you have a cleaner, crisper shot. And so there's some software that does that. You can also do that in Photoshop. But mainly, you can, if you just do a single exposure in Lightroom, you can start there, and you can definitely capture the Milky Way, see the Milky Way, and get started that way. And there are places in Korea. I've seen Milky Way shots from Korea. I assume they're real. The other thing I know you can do is light star trails, and that's a lot easier to do without using a what's it called? You can use the you don't need to be in a super dark place to get star trails. It's okay if, like, even you can do star trails above some cities. So that's a good way to start. So yeah. So yeah, I guess that's it. Like I said, I just launched my New York tour. So if you're interested in photographing New York, definitely give me a shout. Go to thenomadwithin.com and you'll see the link for the New York tour. I also have 2 spots left for the tour in Monument Valley, so in September. So it's going to be awesome. Have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day, everyone. Thanks, Jason. Glad you all could make it here. And if you have any questions, you can send me a DM or write it under this video, and I'll get to them next week. Or just there's a contact form on my website where I will answer to submit your questions. All right. Thanks, everyone. Take it easy. Later, Jason. Bye.